You go to Nigeria, which is, if not the most corrupt nation in Africa, and it is, it could be the most corrupt nation in the world.
Fine. So what? 35 years old. That's what that nation is. Now here's America, 226 years old. You love democracy, but there in Africa, you're trying to force these people into a system of government that you just have accepted. 30 years ago, black folk got the right to vote. You're not in any moral position to tell anybody how corrupt they are. You should be quiet. I will not allow America or you, Mr. Wallace, to condemn them as the most corrupt nation on earth when you have spilled the blood of human beings. Has Nigeria dropped an atomic bomb and killed people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? How dare you put yourself in that position as a moral judge? I think you should keep quiet.
So that interview was done over 20 years ago, and that was Ben Wallace from 60 Minute interviewing civil rights leader Louis Farrakhan. And that was pretty much the image that they portray of African nations and Caribbean and countries in the Middle East when it comes on to corrupt. So as you saw, Ben Wallace there trying to convince Farrakhan that, look, Nigeria has got to be one of the most corrupt country in the world. So the reason why I'm touching on this topic is because I did a video about a week ago talking about the corruption in the Caribbean and the rank for the different Caribbean islands. And in that video, someone pointed out about who is responsible, who are the people that are responsible for measuring corruption, and pointed out that yes, it would be some European countries that are responsible for it. So we can't take whatever like these people are saying, the people that are responsible for the corruption scale. So today I decided I want to talk about which region is more corrupt, the Caribbean, Africa, or Europe. So let's talk about it. Okay, so for years before the advent of social media like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and even YouTube, how we receive our news was very different. We received our news from a handful of people, a handful of first world countries, and the news that we saw back then is what they wanted us to see. So for example, in the Caribbean, when back in the 80s we were watching like BBC. BBC was the one news network, international news network, the first of its kind before CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and all of these channels that we have now for news. So BBC, controlled by the British government, was pretty much the first international news channel. And what we saw in the Caribbean was pretty much what they wanted us to see. What was shown in Africa is pretty much what they wanted to show in Africa. So for example, in the Caribbean, we would get images coming out of Africa. Like I remember as a child, as a young person, getting images from Ethiopia. Ethiopia, like for whatever reason, there's always like some starving village, some like you would never think that there's anything good going on in places like Ethiopia. Same thing with Nigeria and any country you can think of in Africa. The images that we got, we never, as a child, as a young person growing up, I have never seen not one good image coming out of Africa. And the same thing, when you watch BBC back in the days in Jamaica, the images that you're in Jamaica and they're showing images of Jamaica. And when they would cover like election and stuff like that, even though some of those elections back in the days, they were really bad. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that they weren't bad. But what you would see on BBC is like the worst of the worst. Like for whatever reason, they would always find that the slums, whether it's in the Caribbean, whether it's in Africa, and you would think that based on what they show, you would think that the entire region of Africa, whichever country that you go in Africa, the entire continent, it's all slums. There's no good buildings. There's no running water. There's no light. There's nothing like that. And pretty much the same thing in the Caribbean. They would take you down to Riverton City in Jamaica where there's like a zinc fence and there are people like groveling through garbage to get their next meal, and that is what they show. And that would come with a message of like, these places are so corrupt. And you would get images and talking points about corruption in, as I said, Nigeria, corruption in Ethiopia, corruption in Jamaica, and in Haiti. And even us, like as Jamaican back then, we would look down on the people of Haiti, not knowing that this information that we were getting from BBC and network like those were just a bunch of lies. So, fast forward now, 2025, we have different platforms where we can really see what is going on across Africa, across the Caribbean, and pretty much across the world. And now we have a true example of where the corruption is coming from, who is corrupt, and what that corruption look like. So, that is what I want to break down today, like corruption across the world and who is more corrupt. Is it the Caribbean, Africa, or Europe? Here at Carib 21, I'm on a mission to showcase the vibrant culture and the breathtaking beauty of the Caribbean while showcasing our culture and what is trending. If you want to support me on this mission, please subscribe. And if you also want to support, you can hit the comment section and buy me a cup of coffee. In order to buy me a cup of coffee, you can follow these instructions. Just click more. You will see the link to buy me a cup of coffee. Click the link. You can purchase 1 or 2 cups of coffee, and you'll be helping me to fulfill this mission. Thank you. So it's not surprising to me, and I'm sure it's not surprising to anyone that, they would rank a lot of the African countries and some of the Caribbean countries as some of the top most corrupt countries in the world. And when you look at, like for example, Nigeria is ranked in the hundreds, like 100 and I don't remember the figure, but about 110 in terms of corruption in the world. And Haiti is ranked like 145 of 190 countries in terms of corruption. And as I said, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Caribbean islands are not corrupt. And I'm not going to sit here and say that African nations are not corrupt. But, for those of us who are from the Caribbean, for those of us who are from Africa, we know what corruption looks like, and it's something that we have dealt with on a day-to-day basis. And some of the corruption, the basic ones, like you're driving and you're speeding, and I can use Jamaica because that's where my experience is from. Driving and you're going a certain, maybe going over the limit or whatever, and a police officer would stop you to give you a ticket. Because you're going over the speed limit, and in order to not get that ticket, the police officer, will hint at you and say, do something for yourself, do something for yourself. And that is something that is commonplace also in Haiti. It is very commonplace in Africa too, because I know I have friends, in Zimbabwe that have experienced the same thing, that's one of the most common in terms of corruption in the Caribbean, in Africa. We know about politicians going into politics poor, and for whatever reason, 5-10 years later, they're like multi-millionaires with some of the biggest houses in the Caribbean. Corruption, we know about that. We know that, sometimes you go, like for example, in Jamaica, again, you go to get your driver's license and you cannot pass the test for whatever reason. You're not good enough, or they're just failing you because it's a hustle, so they keep failing you, and then they say, you know what, give me some money and I'll deal with it for you. So those are the level of corruption that we're used to in the Caribbean. And as I said, it's very similar in Africa based on my conversations with friends that come from the continent, that a lot of the countries are similar. The police, politicians getting rich and stuff like that. But, the corruption that they don't talk about is Europe. And in Europe and in North America, some of the lowest corruption rates in the world. And, they brag about, first world country, France and Spain and places like Portugal, and even North America here, like Canada and America. They brag about the quality of life, and the quality of life is good. Don't get me wrong, like quality of life is good. Places like France, where the average worker in France will get like 1 month pay paid vacation. They only work 32 hours per week, and life is good. And the banking system, everything goes according to the way it should go. There's no police stopping you, and you have to pay instead of getting a ticket. Like all of those stuff, that is true when it comes on to places like France, places like Spain, North America, Canada, and America. That is true. Like you're not going to be stopped by a police, trying to take money from you instead of giving you a ticket and all of that. So, a lot of people will see that and say, yes, these places are not corrupt, and they're good places to live, and there's no corruption there. But that could not be further from the truth. The difference is that Europe and North America, a lot of the corruption that they are involved in, it does not necessarily take place in their country, but their corruption takes place in places like Africa and in places like the Caribbean. So I'm going to break down some of the most crazy, some of the most corrupt things that these first world countries, these countries that are not listed high in terms of corruption in the world, these countries that are seen as some of the best countries to live in the world, the least corrupt countries, and with good economies, I'm going to list some of the corruption that these countries have participated. And as I said, a lot of the corruption is not in their own country. These corruption take place in like Africa and in the Caribbean. So first I want to talk about the scramble for Africa. If you want more on this, the history of the scramble of Africa, Google it and you'll get all the information you need. So I'm going to give you the basic right now. So the scramble of Africa was something that took place in the 19th century, where Europe pretty much, they were fighting to colonize Africa. So when we look at Africa, the continent, and we look at the Caribbean, and you see the history and the colonizers, like you see like Jamaica, the history with the Spanish and the British. You see Haiti, you see the history with French. You go across Trinidad and Tobago, you see the same thing, Spanish, the British. So that was pretty much a scramble for the Caribbean, but there was a scramble for Africa in the early 19th century, and this was taking place. As I said, let me list the countries that participated in the scramble for Africa. So the countries that participated was Germany, Belgium, France, UK, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. So the scramble for Africa, as I said, it took place in the 19th century, and it's pretty much these European countries fighting to colonize Africa, fighting to go into the continent and to kill people, take over their country, and take over their natural resources. Because as we know in 2025, that Africa has more natural resource than anywhere else in the world. When you look at places like DR Congo, and you see all the minerals, and the Congo is still so poor. When you look at all over Africa, you look at the whole blood diamond, you look at, the gold, the minerals that have been extracted from Africa. So this is what the scramble was all about. So that took place, in the 19th century. And what happened back then is that these countries, Spain, Italy, Belgium, all of these countries, they were fighting to colonize Africa. And they had to come to an agreement, which was called the Berlin. It was a conference that took place in Berlin, where these European nations came together and said, you know what? Instead of going in and fighting and killing each other, they're going into Africa, trying to take over indigenous people's land. And they come to an agreement and said, instead of us going there and killing each other, let's just have this conference, the Belgium conference, that took place in 1884 to 1885. And we're going to come to an agreement, and we're going to say like, okay, so France, you can get Côte d'Ivoire, you can get Mali, you can get Niger, and okay, so UK, you can get Ghana, you can get, and they divide up, not their country, Africa, divide up Africa amongst them. And these are some of the countries today that, when you look at the corruption scale, they are not seen as corrupt. The African countries, the one that were colonized, are some of the most corrupt countries in the world, even though these European countries, France, the UK, Italy, Belgium, went into Africa, extract their resources, and left their people poor, left their people dying, starving, and they extracted all of these minerals, these golds, these diamonds, and took back to their country. And when you look at Europe, you look at the UK, coffee, tea, all of the things that the UK brag about, they cannot be grown in the UK. They're extracted from Africa. When you look at the diamonds, the golds, like all of these natural stuff that all of these first world countries, these European countries brag about, their wealth were built on Africa. But Africa is the continent that's corrupt. The Caribbean is corrupt, even though they came and they colonized the British, the Spanish, they colonize and they extract all our natural resources. But when you look at the corruption scale, 2025, the African countries are ranked high, the Caribbean countries are ranked high, but the ones that came in and colonized us, the ones that came in and stole our resources and starved our people, they are not ranked high. They are seen as developed countries, first world countries, and civilized, modern civilizations. We are civilized. We don't do the things that these guys do in Africa. We don't do the things that these guys do in the Caribbean. We're civilized people. So guys, sound off in the comment section and let me know your thoughts so far. Okay, yes, so when we talk about the Caribbean now, and we talk about Haiti, Haiti is a perfect example. Cuba, Haiti, and what is going on in Cuba, like with the embargo, it's almost 70 years now, 70 years that the Americans and other countries decide that they're not going to trade with Cuba because Cuba is a terrorist country. Cuba. And we have seen over the almost 70 years, where we have seen America, in particular America, the different governments refuse to trade with Cuba because they are a communist country. They deny people their rights. However, the same America, we see trade with China over the 60 years, and China became this big superpower because of businesses that they have done with the American government and the American people. And China is a big communist country, but America still trade with China today, but refuse to trade with Cuba. We see them trade with the Middle East, like a lot of countries in the Middle East that even Americans say are denying women of education, or denying rights of women like driving and basic rights, voting and stuff like that. But still, they trade with those countries, but they refuse to trade with Cuba. We see what's happening in Haiti over the past 100 years. From 1905 when, the Americans occupied Haiti until 2025, we see the turmoil that's going on in Haiti. And when you turn on the news, like you'll see that what is going on in Haiti now is because of corruption in government, local gangsters and all of that stuff. But they're not going to tell you the true picture of Haiti with what France did to Haiti. When Haiti, the government of Haiti had to pay $20 million for Haiti to get their freedom. So we saw the United Kingdom, the government of the UK, they paid the slave owners in the Caribbean millions of dollars for their slaves. But Haiti, the people of Haiti had to pay $20 million for their freedom. And that $20 million was paid up until the earthquake. And people still insist that Haiti is not developed because of corrupt government in Haiti. It has nothing to do with France, nothing to do with the $20 million, nothing to do with more than 50% of the country's GDP going to pay France their debt. Nothing to do with that. And even under all those pressure, like Haiti, they were still surviving until other stuff was done to destabilize them. We have seen the assassination of numerous presidents in Haiti, and every time Haiti is about to get back up on their feet, something happened. But it's Haiti is the one that's corrupt, and we go on now to Guyana. Guyana is the latest one. No, people are worried about Guyana because Guyana, in recent times, have been dubbed as the fastest growing economy in the world. We see the oil, one of the most like oil rich nation in the world right now. And, Guyana is like the new kid on the block, and everybody's excited about Guyana in their newfound wealth. But when you look deep into it and when you see the reports coming out of Guyana now, and one of the latest report that I saw was like, I think last year or the year before, they got something like $60 billion worth of oil came out of Guyana for the past couple of years, 60 billion. And the Guyanese government is only getting 2% royalty. And people are like scratching their head and they're like, 2%? A big company like Exxon go in, extract millions of barrels of oil and, receive billions of dollars. And the government of Guyana, a 2% royalty. But Guyana is listed as the most corrupt, the most corrupt in the region, in the Caribbean, in CARICOM. But when you look at a deal like that, 2% royalty, I don't know the calculation, but for $60 billion, going to Exxon and only 2%. And there's also a bit of a rumor going around that they're not even paying taxes in Guyana. Like Exxon Mobil is working, some magic to not pay tax in Guyana and something about paying tax in Bahamas or something like that. But this is what we have to deal with. And we are the ones that are corrupt. The Caribbean is corrupt and Africa is corrupt. But the people that are extracting our resources, the people that comes in and they take what they want and they take it by force, like in terms of like embargo and not lending money through the IMF and stuff like that. Those are the forces that they use to take our resources from the Caribbean and from Africa. But as I said, we are the ones that are corrupt. So guys, sound off in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on this. Who do you think, which region is the most corrupt? Is it the Caribbean? Is it Africa? Or is it Europe? Sound off and let me know. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. And remember, peace. I'm out.